going? And this is on. Good. I will call this meeting of the Traffic, Bicycle, and Pedestrian Commission to order. As far as roll call, I know Chairperson Fino is excused, so I will run it today. And everybody except Stephen Larson is currently present. Can I make a motion or get a motion for the approval of the agenda?
Motion to approve.
A second.
Can I get it? Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And can I get a motion for approval of the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes for the 21st of October.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. And then we'll get right into regular business and go into our traffic safety plan.
All right, so you should have a copy of the November traffic safety plan. We're starting with October numbers. We had 219 total crashes in October. And out of that, 181 property damage ones, 37 injury, and 1 fatality. We talked about that 1 fatality last time. That was in 1100 block of Main Street. And just finished up my reconstruction of that one, and I think the driver was going 31 to 32 miles an hour in 30 zones, so no criminal action found on the part of the driver. We talked about the pedestrians there, and both pedestrians were jaywalking. OWI, 28 OWI arrests, 681 total traffic stops. Task force stuff, we're slowing down on our speed and clicking to ticket and pedestrian ones. During the winter months here, we're going to focus mainly on just OWIs on the weekends, saving our grant money for the warmer times of the year when more pedestrians are out and more speed issues. Traffic complaints, you can see speeding continues to be our biggest complaint that we have to deal with. And one of the hotspots really hitting hard is Webster and Eliza. We've been making a lot of stops there. Still got a speed board sitting out there and hoping to clear the issue there. Same issue a little bit west of there on Monroe by Eliza, coming into the city, doing a lot of enforcement there. We're gonna a lot of social media stuff going on, coming up into the holidays here. Thanksgiving and then the Christmas season. Traditionally, we see a lot more impaired driving. I think over the years it's seemed to have been a little bit better, but I can see kind of a lot of people using more of the Uber and Lyfts and ride shares. So I think that's a cultural change that we're seeing a benefit from, especially for the younger generation. But still definitely not hard to find OWIs. And then party enforcement areas, I got some predictive analytics that I got a Webster University, Webster and Mason, Mena Mason, and Mason and Roosevelt. Those are the spots for anticipating the highest likelihood of having crashes in the next 30 days. And I think in the first one there, Webster and Mason, Tom had said we noticed an issue of lack of signage on the Tillman Bridge with speed there. County put up some additional speed limit signs. Time will tell, and we'll see how that affects the speeding there. Because traditionally Webster and Mason, I think the speed approaching there, as well as the people running red lights and yellow lights, traditionally been the issue there. So we've been enforcing that as much as we can. Any questions?
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Regarding traffic stops,
Mm-hmm.
in the last 9 months, it looks like October was the lowest. Is there a reason for that?
I think a part of that would be the grant stuff. Like I said, we're starting to trim down on our seatbelt and pedestrian safety grants and stuff. We're also short on a person in the traffic division. We got a process going right now to fill a spot with that. And also some of our traffic officers were out on some training for the month.
Fun question for
Yeah.
you.
All right,
That-
thank you. Sorry.
I'm sorry, that Monroe, or the Webster and Eliza staff, where you just had the car sitting there, you find that just having like the cop car sitting there is slowing the traffic down?
It can be. It depends on the person though. I can tell you, I'm riding my motorcycle fully marked and high-vis stuff, and people still pass me down 50 miles an hour and just not paying attention.
Well, it made me laugh because someone actually told me that they saw it empty and then they saw someone in it and like freaked out and slammed on their brakes. And I was like, well, I knew there was a cop car there. So.
I suppose they go by it once and they see that it's
They
empty
went
and,
by it a
yeah.
couple times and saw there was nobody in it. So I was just curious because it seemed like it worked. It honestly seemed like it slowed people down, not even having you guys in the car.
And and just, just having the presence there can help that, so there's one tactic we can use.
That's a good point, because I've seen that car around too, but
There's no one in it.
you need to wash it more often.
I did have a neighbor come up and ask me if everything was okay, because that car had been sitting there all
Yeah,
night.
it gets really dirty, dusty, so.
Is there any other questions at all? Otherwise, can I get a motion to receive and place on file?
Make the motion to receive and place on file.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Perfect, and we'll move on to number 2. Consideration with possible action on the request by Alder Prophet to add movable signage on Atkinson Drive, exit of I-43, to call it industrial semi-truck routes versus residential routes. Tom, is there anything you'd like to say before I open up the floor, or?
Well, both of the routes as you're coming off of I-43 at Atkinson are truck routes. Atkinson is a connector to Belp Avenue, which is 141, which was a truck route through the city, and it's also an alternate for I-43 when they close down the Leo Frigo Bridge. They usually put out the message boards. The DOT would prefer people to bypass the Leo Frigo by taking 41 to 172 to 43. But if they do come and get already on that exit, whether it's on the east or west side, they're forced off at Webster, and then they come through the city, through the city using Webster University, Broadway, and Mather. And those are connecting highways. They're state highways. They're business 141. So there's no. It's not like it's a local truck route like Elizabeth Street or somewhere in the I-43 business park. It is a marked highway, so there is no restriction. And you can't. I don't know a way that you can. Well, the state would never allow us to install any signs at their exit ramps. And how do you tell somebody these are both truck routes? We'd like the big trucks to go to the north and through Prairie and Hurlbut in the industrial
Right.
area, and the other ones you just. We looked at this in 2018, and there's no way of doing it, no way enforcing it, so it didn't move forward.
Can I speak on that?
Can I get a motion?
Motion to open the floor.
Cool. May I approach the bench?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm Tom Freeberg. I'm the supervisor for District 7 for Brown County.
Could state your name.
Oh,
and address for that.
yeah, Tom Freeberg, 1015 Gray Street. So yeah, this has been an issue basically for Randy Scannell and for me and Alyssa. Yeah, you basically covered it. In 2018 they did a traffic study in that area, and they found that basically there's going to be a large truck going up North Broadway every 3 minutes past those houses. So they've all these people, they know that they live on a truck route. When they moved in, they knew they lived on a truck route. However, over the past 10 years, that traffic has steadily increased and increased and increased. So they're dealing with soot and dirt blowing into their houses. They have to keep their windows closed, otherwise they can't hear the TV on when a vehicle goes by. So that's kind of the long and short of it. Yeah, there is the Prairie to Hurlbut route that would basically avoid all the residential areas, as well as the train tracks, which sometimes the vehicles, if they take the southern route and then go north, they'll have to stop for the trains there. So the north route would potentially, or hopefully, at least mitigate that from that side of things. And I know you guys can't install signage signage. But if there's one thing I learned about government is you gotta find loopholes, right? So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, when there is construction going on, right? Do you need to notify the DOT that you're gonna be putting up temporary signage to tell them that there will be construction?
I have to notify the DOT if I close down any highway that comes through the city. I can close lanes on the Main Street Bridge, I can close lanes on the Mason Street Bridge, but if I physically close the bridge to traffic, then I have to get permission.
Right, so I'm not saying to close anything,
No,
I'm just saying
right.
in terms of the signage, that's not really spelled out, like in terms of like the construction signage, when that goes up, how long it goes up for. DOT doesn't really care, do they?
No, they do.
Oh, no, they do.
They do.
Oh, they do,
do.
okay.
I mean, if I could install some signs, somewhat related to trucks, but what we get a lot of complaints are coming off of any freeway or interstate is compression braking, no compression braking in the city. DOT, don't install those on our street, you know. The Visitor and Convention Bureau just installed a $7 million building next to Cabela's out there. Not on the state highway will you see an exit tourist and information.
Mhm.
You'll see one on Lombardi, but not, I install them for the Packer beams and they dual right turns, all Packer traffic use this. And it took me a while to get the state to, you can put them up, but you gotta take them down after the game.
Yeah.
You know, so those type of things, the flock cameras that Green Bay PD has installed, pulling teeth to get the DOT just to let you put them up on a section of roadway that's under their maintenance. They're out of the, they gotta be 50 feet off the roadway, because in a 70-mile-an-hour zone, they have all kinds of restrictions. So it's very difficult with the DOT to install anything near their ramp.
Gotcha, so even temporary signage then would
Yeah,
just.
the
be
ramp
out.
terminals are DOT's control from one end to the
Gotcha.
other. If they overlay that street, we don't do it, the DOT does it, so.
Okay.
Anything near
Unless
the
you
ramp.
guys were to create a type of agreement where you would take over the jurisdiction, that's usually the only time
Yeah,
that
but-
you would be able to install your.
Right, on a connecting highway through the city, Webster Abbott, well, not Webster, because it is ours, but Mason, and, those type of streets, connecting highways, but the DOT would never give us control and ownership of the interchange.
Okay.
The DOT owns the two roundabouts at Mason and 41. They own from the Atkinson off-ramp, this terminus, they paint it,
Yeah.
they overlay it, they sign it, it's 100% theirs.
Okay. Okay, so I guess in terms of the signage then, that option is off the table. In lieu of that, is there any apparatus within the city of Green Bay that deals with like business outreach, so, they can either talk to the trucking companies that are routing all their trucks along certain routes and, hey, can you take this route instead?
Right.
Is there anything at the city level that can,
Nothing that I know of, and when
Okay.
this came up in 18 and 21, we asked a number of those truckers, and one of the reasons they don't go to the north, go up through Hurlbut, Prairie, Billsby, although you say the tracks on North Broadway, they have to cross, well, there's 3 sets of tracks, maybe even 4 sets of tracks to cross between Hurlbut and
Gotcha.
Prairie. They're all industrial tracks, spur tracks going into different areas, and it's a rougher road, and I know that the trucks, that's 24% trucks. I mean, that's one of it,
yeah.
it's a lot of vehicles that are going through there, and we talked to Dean Hannon, the port director, and it's the city port, the
Mhm.
Western Line, all those businesses along there, and it's just like, we did our best just to keep them off of Alexander, there's that plastic plant back there that comes out.
Mhm.
We don't want you to go to Ashland, you gotta take this street to this, you gotta, closest and shortest distance from a truck route, from your destination to a truck route.
Gotcha, okay.
And so, we would have no pull with any of those businesses, and I do believe that they all increased significantly when the pipeline broke
Yep.
years ago, and they found out it was just as cheap to haul gas around from Door County and from whatever, and they all come out of those big
Yeah.
tankers. So the volume of those type of trucks did increase, and it will never go away unless they decide to build another pipeline from Milwaukee to
Yeah.
Green Bay.
Okay.
So,
All right. Well, not the answer I was hoping for, but it's all right. So,
all right.
Yeah, if you guys have any other suggestions for managing that, or, I don't know. Yeah, it's tough for them to live there, even though, you know, they chose to live there. But yeah, things have getting worse over the years, so.
It's a tough one, and I can promise you, just being on the board for On Broadway, that they've been trying to fight that as well, just because, you know, and I'm at the museum, so even just crossing to go to Kavarna, just the traffic isn't what you would
Yeah.
expect for a walkable
Okay.
downtown area. So I know there's other people fighting with you
Yeah.
to try to figure out.
Now, what about just one person standing on the bridge with a sign that's like, hey, go this way, please? All right.
Is there
Yeah.
anything that can be done about like the air braking that happens? Because
Well,
that's,
like I said, we have the signs in the city. I don't know if we have any in the Broadway area. Do we?
Or I'm not even, we should get some there if they're
Yeah.
not, because,
We 15, 20 years ago, we started putting these up. We put them on Elizabeth Street, we put them on the causeway going over the top of the Ashland Bridge, we put them on South Broadway, we put them here and there, and we said, well, where is this gonna end? You know, we're gonna put them everywhere. So what we did is all entry points, all truck entry points into the city, whether you go way down on Military, you go way out on East Mason Street, if it's a truck entry point, it says no compression braking within the city. You know, Howard right by the cemetery. Could I add some signs, internal signs? Yes. I could put a sign coming in from, let's say, southbound, coming from the industrial area to just north of Alexander. I think there's a Goose Crossing sign there.
are there, in same vein as like speed cameras, are there like sound cameras that would take a photo whenever the decibels get too high?
There is there a way? There might be, but
But yeah,
it's a noise ordinance and police enforces it. And when we first started putting up all these signs, we're like, well, we can put up as many signs as we want. And then, you know, is there any enforcement? And police can't find a very good way of recording that, because it's an ordinance violation, so it's a noise, so they'd query it and says, is this related to a truck? We don't know. We just know we have a noise violation.
Gotcha,
And
okay.
because it falls under the same code.
Okay.
There isn't a different code for Jake braking or compression braking versus just,
Okay.
that's what you're violating is the noise
Okay.
ordinance.
Is there
But
a
yeah, I
specific
could-
spot within there that they're
Oh, yeah.
more than Jake bringing?
Yeah, just the north, basically, yeah, this north segment here along Broadway. Yeah, they'll come off out of McDonald and then, yeah, usually air brake to that corner and then turn left, and then again at that intersection if they have to stop.
I mean, I could look at putting on northbound and southbound on Broadway, north of Mather and south of Alexander, when they come out of the industrial
Okay.
area, closer to the residential, and
Yeah.
just say, no compression braking within city limits.
Yeah, that would be appreciated.
so then as far as enforcing it goes though, that's a noise ordinance, like if, can you tell when it's too loud, or do you not have a mechanism right now to be able to say, yeah, that's too loud, we can pull this trucker over? and
Well, I
we'll
think it's
find-"
not the decibel level that matters, it's just the fact that they are compression braking.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Can only be done in emergency.
Okay, yeah, because I think if you sat at like the end of Phoebe for an hour, you could probably catch at least 20. Because it really, the frequency has gotten incredible, absolutely incredible. And it is extremely residential, and there's, yes, the families have made that decision to live in that chunk, but I do think at some point it's like, okay, this frequency all throughout the night, all throughout the day, we want to keep families living in that really precious part of town, that gorgeous Fort Howard Park. I mean, I know you agree to live next to some stuff, and there's a layer of it that's city living, but then there's that layer that is J-breaking, that's just like, what can we do to get this to stop, so, yeah. Appreciate you guys listening. I know
Yeah,
it's been
thank you.
brought up a few times, so
Yeah,
appreciate you in the
I pulled
background.
up all the reports from the last time that we looked at it.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Would
Do we
anybody
want
else?
to have her state her name and address for the record since she did speak?
Sure, Alyssa Profit, the alder for this district, 1262 Cherry Street, Green Bay.
Anybody else who's here like to speak?
None of it's
And I'll make a motion to close the floor.
Motion to close the vote.
All in
Second.
favor? All in
Actually, you have
favor?
it.
Appreciate it, Alyssa. Oh, you want that?
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you, everyone.
No, he committed to doing something.
Yeah.
I'll install the signs. No compression, or no compression braking within city limits, our standard sign. It might be reduced in size because we have large ones for higher speed locations,
I'm
but,
assuming that section of North Broadway then, that's city controlled, that's not.
oh yeah, that's city control.
Yeah, so you don't need to get approval from DOT for
No,
that portion.
no, only on the ramp terminals exiting the highway, the people on 43 at University over by the Festival Foods, in that wraparound Clement Street apartments have begged for them forever, and it's like, you can't do anything on the highway. Yeah,
You wanna make
I'll make a motion to install the signs. And that's on a 90-day trial, correct?
that wouldn't be on a 90-day
No,
trial, that's
permanent?
just it's already, you already can't do it, it's now I'm just putting signs up
Okay.
to reinforce the fact that you can't do it.
Excellent.
I'll make that
I'll second.
All in favor? Oops.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carried. Any other topics or anything you want to bring up on this?
I'm good.
Okay. Thank you all for coming. We look forward to the signs and hope they actually do something to help out. So the next one is termination of 90-day trial to establish a four-way stop condition on Irwin Avenue at Eliza Street.
Yeah, that's that one that we installed for
Yeah.
John Shelton.
It looks like it's working.
Yeah, we did pretty much, we did everything that we could,
You
even
gave
more
them all
than
the
what was
bells and
recommended.
whistles.
The stop signs, the bright side, the
I saw the
crosswalks, the
flags.
stop bars, all four directions have advanced stop signs. Before, I think it was either two or maybe one direction, so. We installed it on all four, so there's nothing left for DPW and engineering to do. It's a multi-way stop.
It looked great when I saw it. Perfect, so can I get a motion for the termination of the 90-day trial?
Motion to approve.
I'll second that one.
Excellent, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So I'm going to take 4 and 5 together. After talking to Supervisor Thino and knowing some of Steve Grenier's concerns, I'm hoping someone could make a motion to hold until the January meeting.
I will make a motion to hold, but there's two people here that would like
Oh.
to speak on this.
Oh, on this one in particular?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know you guys were here for that one.
So I'll take a motion to open the floor.
Thank you.
Second.
Have you state your name and address.
I'm Jesse Wellens. I live at 1084 Dowsman Street.
Perfect.
So bear with me, never done anything
Oh,
like this
hey.
before, but
No worries.
bear with me as I fumble my way through this. But I wanted to comment about the traffic calming policy and the proposed changes about it and the policy in general. Because on the specific motions here, I do absolutely support, at least theoretically allowing traffic calming policy on collector streets, as well as inching in the direction of including traffic calming on newly constructed streets. I think it's a great step in the right direction. But I do want to just offer my comments on why I think the current revisions as they are might not go far enough. And I want to share my experience about that. But my wife and I live at the corner of Dowsman and Gray Street. And this intersection has a relatively large number of accidents. I imagine it's come up before. I think it has in previous meetings, but we hear all of them because we're two houses down from the intersection. So we hear the screech and we hear the crunch, and it feels like it happens relatively frequently. And every time it does happen, I have that terrible, horrible, morbid thought of, thank God that one wasn't a pedestrian, because the accidents that we see tend to be fender benders, but pedestrians don't have fenders. And I'm terrified of looking at my window and seeing someone lying in the street, because this intersection feels relatively unsafe. So I've been reading books about this because it's something I'm recently passionate about, but I've read a bunch of books on urban planning and intersection design, and I've read about curb bump outs, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. You shorten the crosswalk, eliminate the right turn lane, bump the curb out, which tends to create a much safer condition for pedestrians and has a traffic calming effect. And I was like, I read about this, I was like, awesome, that's great, that looks like exactly what this intersection might need, and I would love to push to try it. I'm sure you know all about the advantages, but I'll just list some for you. It narrows the street, which induces drivers to slow down. It increases the visibility of pedestrians, which minimizes the time that pedestrians are in the crosswalk, which reduces the risk of being hit. Increases driver willingness to yield to pedestrians because the crosswalk is shorter. Just psychologically, drivers are way more willing to yield in that situation. It simplifies the intersection by removing the right turn lanes, which is the source of a lot of pedestrian collisions, because if you think about turning right, you tend to look left and then run over the person trying to cross the street that you didn't see. And it also can provide a safe place for cyclists to wait their turn. If it's designed with a cutaway, like the Netherlands does this, it protects the cyclists while they're waiting for their turn at the stop sign. It's a very dangerous position for a cyclist to be in because people don't see you and hit you from behind. So all of that makes me think that there's room to experiment with different ways of making this intersection safer. So I joined the board of the Neighborhood Association, which was recently reformed, and I got everyone on board of like, hey, we should talk to the city about this, at least start the conversation and see what can be done here. And then I read the traffic calming policy and I was sad because Dowson Street and Gray Street are classified as minor arterial streets. And even if this proposed change goes through, I feel like we're still kind of dead in the water because everything I want to talk about is technically traffic calming. The policy is very clear that traffic calming is not appropriate on arterial streets of any kind, even minor arterial streets. So, I did read something else, however, because I like to come prepared. I read the transportation section of Smart Growth 2022, which you probably know is the city's comprehensive plan. And in Volume 2, Chapter 19, states that, quote, while traffic calming measures are usually applied to local residential streets, traffic calming is also appropriate for functionally classified streets in residential areas, pedestrian activity areas, and older commercial areas where buildings and sidewalks are close to the street. It also says, quote, narrowing streets is a very effective traffic calming measure and may be appropriate for a wide variety of streets. So I understand the comprehensive plan is not legally binding or anything like that, but I feel like I read that and I had to point out there's a contradiction. The comprehensive plan says one thing, traffic calming policy, even with the changes, is a lot more restrictive than what the comprehensive plan recommends. So I wanted to bring that up. Why the contradiction? Is there anything that we can talk about? But more importantly, I'm looking for optimism. I didn't like reading that our streets are classified in such a way that absolutely nothing can be done or even talked about. I've read a lot of urban planning blogs and infrastructure comments, and people are experimenting and doing wonderful things with temporary obstacles. Can we make curb bump outs with traffic cones or planter boxes? Can we make a roundabout with planter boxes? Can we protect a bike lane with some kind of temporary physical barrier and see how that works? Is there any room for experimenting as part of this policy or as part of some other policy or anything like that? Because I really feel like the streets could be safer, and we live there, and we don't have kids, but we have a lot of friends with kids, and their parents are so attuned to the danger, and I don't see anyone playing in their front yards. I don't see kids biking down this particular street. I see them in all the other streets in the next box over, but no one's going to let their kid bike in this bike lane, and that makes me sad. So I just wanted to share all that with you. I'm really passionate about this. I have a lot of ideas, and I would like to talk about it, but thank you all for your time and attention. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Stick around after the meeting.
Yeah.
You got it.
No question?
Anybody have a question?
All right, make it a motion to close.
So, motion to close the floor. I will make a motion to hold this until January of
I'll second
25.
closing the floor.
Oh, yeah.
I'll second closing the floor. Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent.
Okay, my motion is to hold this until January of 25.
Tell you what, before we act on that motion, there are a couple of other just very, very small items that I want at least put on the record for
Okay.
tonight. One of them, let me go back here. under step 5, to the language that we added in red, what I'd like to also include is the city shall, and then in it additionally, insert follow step 3 data collection process, and make every effort, and then continue. It doesn't explicitly say that we were going to put the traffic tubes out there again, so I just want to reaffirm that we're going to follow that process. And then the other part, kind of questions for staff. So under the general criteria that must be met for any stage 2 traffic calming measure, the installation must not result in traffic diversion to other neighborhood streets. Please tell me how staff is defining that. Is it 1 car? Is it 100?
Well,
I think that's
yeah.
way too vague, and I'd like to strike it. Unless you have a measure that you'd like to include. I mean, I just,
Yeah.
you know where I'm coming from, like, right?
No.
So when we have the public asking, well, why didn't my project make it through? It qualified, it passed all the steps. Well, staff said that you were diverting traffic, so it died. Well, but how many?
Right.
So if we're gonna have stuff in here that's gonna kill a project, it has to be a measurable number. You've gotta have some standards in here. It can't be so loosey-goosey that we're, you know, we can just kill it whenever we want. So that's my comment on that one. The second one, also I have some concerns about. I didn't realize, after reading through this the first time, that we already have neighborhood support as required for initiating this process. But now we have to go back and we have to hit higher thresholds, higher standards. My question back to staff is, why are we going back and having to hit these extremely high standards for support of a project that we've already shown that the neighborhood is in support of? So right now, that's an open-ended question back to staff. The other two, I think they're fine. Number 3 and 4 can stay. But I'd like to discuss those a little bit further.
So you'd like answers to those?
I would, yeah. Well, first of all, number 1, I'd like stricken. Number 2, yeah, I think we just need to discuss that one a little bit more, get staff's perspective on it, because we're asking, 60% of the impacted residents within 1 contiguous block of the proposed traffic calming, and, not or, but and 75% of the residents within 100 feet of the proposed device need to support the installation. But again, we've already shown support through getting people to sign the petition to even go through this process. So, again, I think, as was noted, there are still some improvements that can be made, and I think reducing the number of barriers to enable projects like this to become more likely to actually occur.
So a bit bureaucratic right
Oh, it's very, yeah. It's, my take on the whole thing, and nothing against staff, right? My take on this is that this was written for all projects to die. Staff did not want to deal with this, therefore we were required to put together a policy, but we're gonna make it as difficult and, onerous as we can make it. And basically, it's proved through 0 projects having ever been approved and moved forward that this project is set to fail. And that was one of the main reasons why I got on this board in the first place, was to make sure that we took a look at this, because I don't think that, government running, a policy or a program set to fail is doing our community any good. And we see it, on a month-to-month basis. Look at one of the top issues, it's speeding. Speeding it can be controlled more through traffic calming measures. The simple, new construction or reconstruction of a street, it can be profoundly changed for that entire neighborhood if traffic calming measures are built right into the design of the road. That's why my comments at the previous meetings, I've stated that we've got so many streets in this city that are just completely overbuilt and unnecessarily overbuilt. And the only way to go in and resolve that is through the reconstruction process. When we get the opportunities to go do utility projects or reconstruction projects, go back in and redesign the street in a manner that helps facilitate more safety. It helps facilitate, slower speeds. It helps facilitate pedestrians' safety. It can be done. The desire just needs to be there. And this is just one step. It's just one thing. That's why I also suggested if we really wanted to take a deep dive into this, take a look at the subdivision ordinance. Subdivision ordinance is where you set all of your right-of-way requirements. You start setting some of your street design requirements. So going back to those initial planning documents, we've got the guidelines set within the comprehensive plan, but we got to take those next steps. So, sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, and it's good, because this way Steve can listen to this meeting, because he's the one who took over Dave's traffic calming policy. And we're one of the few communities that even have a traffic calming policy. And I don't know that this, we based it off of Oregon is the biggest community that really did it. And Oregon is the one who also found out that, we put a roadblock on, Baston Street. Well, now people are peeling off of it because they don't like Baston and they're running up Peters. That was the diversion, all right, we'll do Oakdale. Oakdale's running parallel to, we'll do Newberry. Well, they don't like Newberry, so they went to Oakdale. Well, that's even more residential.
Yeah.
So then, we didn't want to be chasing ourselves and saying, we did one street, now we got to do them all. We only have two, I believe, two speed tables in the city, real true traffic calming, the way this was intended.
Correct.
And that is on Farland, because we closed off Day Street. And then we also put one on Peters or Fred, one of those streets
Yeah, it's Peters.
back there with the development of Festival. And we required, Day Street came because of the closure of Day, and we didn't want Farland to get just terribly abused.
Yeah.
And the one by Festival was part of the development agreement that we didn't want back access. You could take the Baston to Clement in, not these other side streets. So the developer had to pay for those. And they, I think they worked. I know the person on Farland wanted it removed when we recently resurfaced it. He said, hey, when you're resurfacing it, get rid of this.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't, because other people liked it.
And I think in talking with staff in the past and just generally having been in the field and worked with these types of projects before, one of the big hangups is that who's going to pay for it? And I get it. It's always a concern. But there are grants, there are programs available specifically for bike, pedestrian, and safety improvements.
Right, and the city
That's
did
called the
just get
HSIP
that,
program.
did just get that $900,000 grant.
Yep.
And we're working through the mayor's office and planning, and Taddy out of Minnesota will be doing the study. And then from there, they're going to make some recommendations, and these recommendations will go from anything from granting PD to do more Frogger operations and or put something physically in the street, test some of these out, in existing roadways, we have to collect the data to find out that it's improving. There's always a chance at a public hearing for somebody who's getting their street resurfaced, they say, hey, when you're resurfacing our street or reconstructing our street, can you put these in? But do we bypass all the traffic calming studies and just say they wanted it, let's just design it into the resurfacing of Lower Lane behind Franklin School? Let's just put a table there.
No, and I fully understand that. I think there is a level of review that should occur
Yeah.
with those associated projects. Now, would it be something to completely throw out the window and say, hey, one of our standard redesign requirements is that we're gonna be putting in the curb bump outs on all new reconstruction projects? Would that be on neighborhood streets, right? We'll start with neighborhood streets. Would that be the worst thing to incorporate into a new street redesign policy? I don't know. I mean, that's a discussion you have to have at staff level. You have to look at it from a numbers perspective. What kind of increased cost would that add to the project, if any? But, you know, it's one of those things. The initiative has to be taken at some point. And when you've got your guiding documents and your plans, you've got people applying for a policy where, you know, people around the city want to see this kind of stuff. It'd feel good if we actually could see it and see it happen, so.
Right.
So in the interest of time, does this commission meet in December?
A lot of times we don't, so I was actually,
Yeah, 'cause
that's
it's
why I
really
held
close
it
to
till
Christmas.
January.
Okay.
I was gonna, have someone make a motion to
So
wait
when-
until January, so we'd have a couple
when could
months
we
to make
yeah.
changes.
When could we expect the staff to kind of get back to?
Well, I think Steve had this traffic calming kind of done, with the exception of that one paragraph that he wasn't willing to edit. I don't believe he wanted to make the changes for a proposed new street. You know, there's other ways that can happen. That happens through planning, that happens through all of our staff. And even if this committee would say to the city, we want this to happen, all this committee's gonna do is, it's a referral to INS, because INS is the one who carries the purse, and INS who makes the decisions, anything that happens on a roadway, even a traffic calming one. If we recommend traffic calming to happen on a street, we would refer that to improvement in service, that this commission is recommending this improvement, and then they would take it from there, whether it's a new street, or a resurfaced street, or a reconstructed street, you know, I mean.
Yeah, yeah, and so I'll tack on to that. So yes, if a project went through this process, it would be a separate expense outside of a normally planned capital improvement project, right? So again, the discussion, like if the city were to revamp or to relook at your standard street design guidelines and make changes there, that's when then those types of new projects, those redesign projects, they wouldn't have to go through that extra hoop. It would just be part of the project design, right? So it wouldn't be a standalone project.
Right, but for Steve to want to remove it, why would he remove it if it really doesn't matter? If you leave it in? I mean, it's my
We'll have to talk about that.
So yeah, question. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much for the additions. Thank you for pointing out the amazing studies that are out there for us to refer to. Any other? Okay,
A
so.
motion to hold until January for clarification on your questions
Yep.
and to tweak the policy some more.
One second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Perfect. Now, let's see what goes. And this one, with informational, I'm going to ask if you could make a motion.
So I would make a motion that we cancel December's meeting of 2024.
I'll second that.
And everybody enjoy the holiday.
Love it.
That's good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect, both same sign. Yeah, I guess it is an adjournment here, I think you, ooh, can I make a motion? Yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
Want that one, Patrick?
Go ahead.
All right, I'll second
Great.
that.
Awesome. Opposed?
Aye.
Awesome, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, Steve can listen to this, hopefully he can hear the audio, but I don't know if he's been sending you this document, you guys been redlining it.